The base has dropped on a sunny day in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't know this happened around here anymore. I thought we had literally turned into Cascadia and hadn't seen the sun in days. It's a sunny but cold Friday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia for Soccer Down here, November 16th. Jason Longshore, Jarrett Smith with you to kick things off. And yesterday when we were talking about what today's hashtag would be, since we've evolved into having a hashtag of the day for each show, it's not a Five Stripe Friday because there's no game this weekend. Jarrett came up with the idea for False Start Friday. I don't exactly know what that means, but here's where I'm going to take it. And Jarrett, since you came up with the name, you get to answer the question first. So on a False Start Friday, what is the one soccer opinion that you've had in 2018 that you jumped the gun on, that you'd like to take back?
Whew.
It's a false start. I figure that's the best thing we can come up with.
Well, the easy one is Orlando would make the playoffs in 2018.
There is that.
Oof. Actually, the one I wish I'd been more firm on was Jesse's Artist turning things around. But
okay, you wish you had believed in that one.
I did believe in him. I wish I believed in him more.
Right.
Yeah. Probably I wish I had believed more in Wayne Rooney as well coming to DC, because I was not convinced that was going to work.
Yeah,
I get that they didn't make it. I get they didn't make it out of the first round, and they looked gassed in that first round.
Yeah.
But man, they were fun to watch. The partnership he formed with Acosta was just filthy.
Yeah, I had faith in Rooney coming over and then making the playoffs, partially because of the schedule, and I thought he had a little more left in the tank. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was with Rooney and Acosta, but I think they'll be a handful next year. Zardes, I'm with you. I thought he would do well. I thought he was definitely going to be a contender for comeback player of the year and double-digit goals, but wasn't sure to what degree that would be. I was right there with you on Orlando. With the talent they had, they should have been a playoff team, even with a leaky defense. I think there's a lot of questions when it comes to Jason Kreis, and I want to see what his next move is, because it's a little odd to see what happened with them. It's very strange to see what happened with Orlando and the lack of organization early on. Something Justin Merrim talked about. When that's not what you expect out of a Jason Kreis team. So that story, I don't know if it'll ever be told, but I was there with you on Orlando. For me, I'm trying to think of takes that I had this year or thoughts that I had that just didn't pay
one
off.
more.
Okay.
There's one more that's obvious.
I think you got help from the your audience over there, didn't you?
San Jose.
I was wondering when that one was going to come up.
That was just too easy.
I mean, it's obvious. The San Jose Earthquakes.
Yeah. The Tommy Thompson fan club is still a thing. So Tommy Thompson isn't a life-changing player. He's not a best 11 player, but he's a solid MLS player, and I just want to see him on the field. I don't think that's a lot to ask.
No, not at all. Let's see. For me, takes I'd like to have back. I expected a lot more out of Dallas. I expected a lot more out of them to begin with in the season. I expected a lot more from them at the midway point. I'm very confused as to why Oscar Pareja persisted with Maxi Urruti as the 10 instead of going to Aranguiz, which would give you a better balanced team, even though you might take your lumps a little bit early. It didn't work out in the end. I can't figure Dallas out right now. They've underperformed here for a little bit. for the last 2 years, and I don't know what the cause is. I think Pareja has to figure some things out going into 19. I was completely there with you on Orlando. I thought they'd be better. I was wrong about New York City. I thought that they were. I thought Dome Torrent would do better when he got here. I thought he would be a manager who could handle the pressure of MLS and take this team to another level, and maybe he still does, but I also think there's a chance he doesn't get back next year to do that the way this flamed out, and the off-the-field side of it as well. Christian Arias of The Athletic has an updated piece about the whole confrontation afterwards here in Atlanta with him and Torrent. It's an awful look, and for a guy who he hasn't been the manager at Bayern Munich and Manchester City and Barcelona, he's been right there, and he's seen managers under more scrutiny than he was. That was a really surprising reaction. I don't know how much control he has over the situation and over the team, and I wonder if they might be looking to make a move. I really expected more from him when he came in. What else?
On the other hand, I expected not this much from Chris Armas. I did not think it would go this well.
I was there with you. I thought NYC, I know I said it, I thought NYC would be the one that when managers changed in midseason, I thought they'd be the one that would take the leap, and I thought Armas and the Red Bulls would struggle a little bit. Completely wrong. Armas has been amazing. I think if John will take his phone off of mute, there we go.
Yeah.
Maybe he has some false starts. You were making weird robot noises and stuff when you came in.
That's not good.
Yeah. So what is your false start? What are your false starts of the year? Things that you thought would happen that you were wrong about?
Well, I agree with you on FC Dallas. I'm still trying to figure out what in the wide world of sports is going on there. And since I did one in the Western Conference, I'll give you one in the Eastern Conference. Toronto. I thought they were going to be better.
Well,
flat out.
No, that's different, though. I mean, nobody could foresee the injuries that Toronto had. They have a valid excuse. I mean, it's not like Orlando where it was talent and just flop. Toronto had injuries that are outside of anybody's control. So, no, I don't think you're wrong on that one at all. I don't think anybody could guess you'd have 4 center backs out at the same time. Nobody would have predicted Michael Bradley would have played more than one game at center back in 2018. So that one, you get a pass.
Okay. And then I have one from off the pitch.
Okay.
That there was a Canadian variant to Brunswick stew.
Wow. He admits it. It's shocking.
You wait for the right
news.
moment.
Where's
my breaking news sounder?
No, it's not breaking news, but it gets an air horn.
You just have to wait for the right moment.
A shocking development on soccer down here on a false start Friday. That's how we're going to kick things off. So what we want to hear from you guys out there listening, what were your soccer takes of 2018 that proved to be wrong? What were your false starts in terms of opinions in 2018? I'm sure we'll have more as we go. It's things that we didn't think of yet, things that we're trying to bury.
The national team would have a coach by now.
Can we do one?
I don't know if anybody expected
horn?
that one. I mean, that's kind of the opposite of false start Friday, but sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like for all the false starts, I'll give you one I'm proud of.
Okay.
I bought hard on Giovanni Savarese, and I feel good about it.
Yeah. I was there with you on that. He's been even better than I expected, and I mean, I think he's a guy who could be in Portland for years if he wants to be. He's just, for me, if he's in your team, he's such a likable guy. You know, I mean, you want to go to war for the guy. So I think Savarese's been excellent. The one I would say that I'm probably proudest of would be the DC call. because I
You should
had
be.
that forever ago, beginning of June. I expected them to make the playoffs. I didn't expect them to get all the way to hosting a knockout round game. I didn't expect that, but I thought they'd make the playoffs, and everybody thought I was crazy. So I'll toot my horn about that one. I'll go Arn Anderson on that one.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with tooting your own horn.
No, I also thought Seattle would not zombify their way back into the playoffs this year, and
yeah, I was
they
wrong on
did.
that. I'll take that as a false start. I thought they were done and dusted. I thought this was the year that they're too far back. There's just no way they can pull it off this time. And they pulled it off all the way to getting into a bye. They didn't get out of the conference semis, which is a different conversation. But I didn't think they'd make the playoffs. I truly didn't.
Yeah, no, I thought that Seattle was done and dusted too. I honestly did.
Yeah, it was quite the turnaround. But I think there's still big questions about Seattle going forward. It came out yesterday in an interview locally from Garth Lagerwey that Will Bruin's under contract through 2020. I would assume Rui Diaz is under contract through at least 2020. Christian Roldan needs to be there long-term. Lodero, how much longer is he going to stay? Does he want to stay? What else? Because you need to replace very soon Osvaldo Alonso, and if that's Roldan, okay, fine. Chad Marshall, Roman Torres. That's three big important members in your spine that you're going to have to replace. I just wonder what that's going to look like. Are they going to be able to reload and keep going? Are they going to be able to figure something out about not starting the season like zombies? I don't know.
I'd like to point out, my take of a parallel, that if you want one from each conference, it's going to have to figure their lives out that kind of mirrored each other at certain points of the season. Mm-hmm. Both Philadelphia and Seattle were kind of weird to start the season. There were stretches late in the year where you did not want to play either one of them.
Yeah.
Both of their seasons ended sooner than they'd like, and they both have questions about, how they go forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Philadelphia, I think, has more immediate questions because Jim Curtin's out of contract. Ernst Tanner is the new sporting director replacing Ernie Stewart. Is he going to go in his own direction? You would probably expect him to. Even though Jim Curtin was my vote for Coach of the Year, I think he got a lot out of a team that probably should not have played the way they did down the stretch, and I thought he made some good moves to get them there. He might be out of a job. And I don't know where his landing spot would be immediately. It's a weird situation to have a manager who does that, but he's out of contract. They flamed out in the postseason. You have a new guy in there who probably wants to do his own thing. So I'm not expecting Jim Curtin back, and that's the biggest decision for Philadelphia. The next one is Borek Dochkow, who was on a loan from a club in China, but there's been talk about potentially going back to the Czech Republic, potentially going back to his club in China, depending on what kind of fees we're talking about from a transfer. If you don't have him back, that's 17 assists you have to replace. And I thought he kind of made it work for them. Does Tanner have some guys in a pipeline that he can bring in to replace Dochkow if that number is too high to do the deal on him? I think the other question that could come up this offseason, but I still think it's maybe a little early, is Austin Trusty. And when are European clubs going to come calling? Because I think they will. But how hungry is he to make that move? Is he begging to go and he'll go anywhere? Or does he want to stay and develop a little further to go to a bigger club? It's going to be an interesting decision for the Union because the partnership of Trusty and McKenzie is one that can take you places. But Trusty is a player who I think will get European interest. I just don't know if he should jump at going to Finland or Denmark or, a smallish league. I think he'd be better to stay here and develop another year if that's the case. We'll get into your false starts on a false start Friday throughout the show. We want to hear takes that you had this year that you were wrong on, that you jumped the gun on. Let us know on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. We'll get into some of the news around the American soccer world in the next segment. And we'll start with United States, England yesterday. Not good. Not good at all.
No.
There's not a lot to take out of that one. We'll see what we can find after this. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. The sun is out. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta, Georgia, even if it's a little cold. Jason Longshore, John
cold?
Nelson, Jarrett Smith. It's a little cold. It's
a lot cold.
That could be worse. Throw on a big jacket. It's all good. It's not that bad. What was bad was the U.S. performance yesterday against England. I saw a stat. Touches in the attacking third in the first 15 minutes. England 38, United States 2. Yeah, that's why it ended up 3-0. Just not a lot to take out of this. One of the things to take out of it is a quote from Christian Pulisic after the game. It's going to help a lot when we get a permanent head coach moving forward, a guy who has a real plan and a style of how we want to play. Yep. I mean, Yep. And one of those things I would like to see in that plan and style is not seeing Christian Pulisic out wide. I don't know what it is about the game in the last 10 years or so where we are afraid to play creative attacking players in a number 10 role centrally. Can we please go back to that with some guys? Christian Pulisic needs to be on the ball as much as possible. He needs to be central. He needs to be behind the forward or forwards, and he needs to drive this team forward. Don't put him out wing where he can get marginalized, where he can get isolated. Let's play him centrally and let him be the guy that he can be. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times in a match, and there are times tactically to move him out wide because there's a 1v1 matchup that he can take advantage of, or the opposition is clogging the middle and you want to move him around to find space. That's fine. But the default should be Pulisic behind the forwards for me. I want to see him on the ball as much as possible. He's the guy who drives this team. He just, for me, gets wasted out wide. And if the option is Julian Green centrally and Christian Pulisic out wide, or Christian Pulisic centrally, I'm going with Pulisic every time. And I don't think there's another player in the national team pool that is a better fit for that position behind the forwards than Pulisic. Jarrett, what did you take out of this one?
A lot of frustration, to be honest. Just especially early in the game, where it was a U.S. team that looked like they were pinned back, and just you're defending, and we're committed to defending. Okay, we'll defend. Yeah, about that. Well, dadgummit, what am I supposed to take out of this?
If you're committed to defending and you give up 2 goals in 3 minutes, that's a problem.
And you probably should have given up 4 goals in the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't look like more than a handful of guys wanted to be there at that day and time. And that's just kooky to me.
That's a great point, and that's something that is unacceptable. Even if this young core is as good as we've ever had at one time. Pulisic, McKinney, Adams, Weah, the young group to build around here is as good as we've had together in a national team pool. It's not Dele Alli, Jesse Lingard. It's not that level. So as good as they are in these types of matches, they have to work their socks off to be able to hang. That's the reality. And if they're not able to raise their level there, you need to get the guys who are, because at the end of the day, you have to get results in international matches. Not yesterday. Yesterday was a friendly. But when you get into games against Mexico, where they are as good or better than you individually 1v1, that effort, that work, you cannot look like you don't want to be there. That's unacceptable. That, to me, is a big problem if that's the case with this team. I think a new manager will help fix that. And I would expect that if it's Greg Berhalter, and that's what we're all expecting, that he will fix that mentality. I think right now, as good as Saracen has done in a thankless role, it's been well past the expiration date for it. There's only so much he can do to get this group motivated when they know they're not playing for him long term. So it almost feels like that is an excuse for it, but it has to change going forward under the new manager, because it's unacceptable for a U.S. team to look that way, because that was our criticism at the end of the Jurgen Klinsmann era, was that it looked like the team didn't want to play hard and didn't want to be there for him. Can't have that. Can't have that. This team's not good enough to have that mentality. They're just not. John, what else did you take out of this?
Other than really the post-game honesty of folks like Pulisic and Will Trapp, I didn't really take a whole lot. It looked like they were reacting as opposed to acting, especially early on. And when you see players whose necks are craned and turned as things are going past you or going over your head with what Fabian Delph was doing on the wings, that's not good. But when you have a Will Trapp sit there and say that I think it was indecision more than ball watching when he was discussing what was going on with the first half, and then he was saying our shifting wasn't quick enough. Do we go with a runner, exploiting the space? It was a smart plan. I don't think we did a very good job of communicating and just shifting across to make it tighter. Things like that Will Trapp said, check, 100%. And then the fire of Christian Pulisic post-match, it's tough. Dave wants to win. It's going to help a lot when we get a permanent head coach. Yes, check mark, check plus. So really, when I'm taking post-game quotes as my biggest takeaway, that to me is a problem.
Yeah, it's not ideal. Brad Kazan had some interesting quotes afterwards, and I thought he kind of nailed it with a very specific element of it. I think a lot of times in these games, you look at it and you're like, oh, they weren't ready to play. What does that mean, really? It doesn't mean anything. It's very generic. And I thought Brad said, look, they were ready to play, but they struggled to play at the same speed as the English team. And that's twofold. It's not just foot race speed. It's speed with the ball. Technical speed is one part of it, being able to control the ball and play fast. Speed of thought is the more important one to me, and that goes along with some of the things you said, those decisions, making those decisions quickly and at game speed. Look, England plays at a different speed. And now this young England team that has had a U17 World Cup winner, a U20 World Cup winner, this is probably the golden generation for England, not the Beckham, Lampard, Gerrard era of England, where everybody expected them to win a bunch of stuff, but all their talent was really in one part of the field. They didn't have a whole lot of depth around the field. This group does. This is a very good group. But the U.S., you have to figure something out here. You have to either, in a game that matters, be able to play at the same speed and speed of thought, or you've got to have a plan to realize that, okay, we can't do that. How are we going to get out of here with a result? And that's where CONCACAF can be tricky for the United States, and it's always going to be an issue because you get so many games that do matter, that are competitive matches, that are against teams that don't test you in that way. Really, the only team in CONCACAF that tests you in that kind of way is Mexico. So when you get these opportunities via friendly, via a Copa America expanded with CONCACAF teams in it, when you get to an Olympics, when you get to Youth World Cups, when you get to a Confederations Cup, you have to make the most of those opportunities because they don't come along every day. And MLS, these players do play at the speed. A Tyler Adams plays at speed and has to make decisions quickly because of the style that they play in and the quality of the league. But as a collective, you have to have that collective speed as a team. That's not there yet. Hopefully that comes with a new manager. But 3-0 to England, not the way you wanted to have these two games kick off. Couple things on the match. Rooney came in as a substitute, for a little over 30 minutes. I think the biggest number about this game and probably the most important thing coming out of it for everybody is that they sold more than 20,000 tickets in the 4 days after Rooney was added to the squad and raised a lot of money for the Wayne Rooney Foundation that does a lot of great work. So for a meaningless friendly, it had some meaning to it. That's a good thing. So that's really it. Wish there was more to talk about from the U.S. perspective, but there's not. We'll see if anything changes in Belgium against Italy. Hopefully, you see a team that is a little angry and is a little ticked off about the way things went against England, and they come out with that fire. But it's likely going to be Dave Sarakin's last game. It'd be nice if they could send him off with a good result because, I mean, he put in the work for no reward, not even getting an interview, not even getting a interview in air quotes that could have at least been a very nice dinner and a thank you. Something.
Not even a don't call us, we'll call you.
Well, no, I don't even think he wants that, but just something nice. I mean, give the guy a steak dinner, please. Like a nice one. Like take him to the nice Argentine steakhouse and take care of this guy. I would say give him the Olympic team. Give him the Olympic team. Yes. You don't have anybody there right now. He's been calling in mostly U23s. Give him the Olympic team. But hopefully these players, and I get Pulisic's frustration afterwards. I don't think it's anything to do with Dave. I don't think he's angry about Sarakin or anything like that. It's just how long can you continue with an interim manager?
You're rudderless.
Yeah, you're done. You he's not the guy you're going to be listening to for the next 4 years. You've checked out. You're not listening. So hopefully, knowing that this will be his last time, send him out well. Give him a good performance. That's the most important thing here. The result isn't. Give him a good performance. Give him a performance that you've given him over this time that he's had with the team. And U.S. Soccer, give him the U23s. You don't have anybody there right now. I don't think you're going to, Berhalter's not going to be, calling his shots on all of the youth national team managers. Give it to Sarakin. Let Tab Ramos support him and help him with that team since he's the youth technical director, and just make the announcement. Come on, please, get it done. Let's take a break. We'll get into the false starts on the other side of the break. Your soccer takes in 2018 that you'd like to have back, that you jumped the gun on. We'll start getting into those after the break. Stay with us. We will be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star, and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 16th edition. John Nelson's off talking to other radio programs at the moment. Maybe talking about Brunswick Stew. I'm not sure. He could be. He could be on an apology tour about Brunswick Stew. We have a few false starts that we'd like to get into here. Jay Riddle, associate producer emeritus Jay Riddle. I thought Gio would need a year to rebuild before Portland would make a serious playoff run. Caleb Porter and Gio are so different stylistically. Nagbe out, Adi out in July. I wasn't prepared for Gio's pragmatism and how influential his energy would be on the team. Also, Chara was a beast all season. Yeah, that's the consistent part. Is Diego Chara is that team. Like he is the Portland Timbers. I had a chance to watch Savarese in the NASL with the Cosmos, so the pragmatism didn't surprise me. And it was interesting to see that with a Cosmos team that had more talent than anybody in that league. But I always thought they were just incredibly prepared. And that was the number one thing that stuck out to me. Every little thing that could help them win a match looked like something they had discussed and they were ready for. That impressed me about Savarese. So I knew that he wasn't really like married to a certain tactical style. Like he wasn't a 4-3-3 guy. He wasn't a 3-5-2 guy. I had high hopes, but I'm close to being with Jay on it. I thought they'd make the playoffs, and once we got into the season, he won me over quick. I thought when they made their run in the middle of the year that they were looking like a team that could win MLS Cup. And when we went into the postseason, outside of Kansas City, I thought they were the team that could go to MLS Cup and compete. And I still think that. I honestly, if Portland is in MLS Cup instead of Kansas City, I would give them more of a shot because of that energy that Gio brings to the team, the just strong defensive shape that they have, and the way that they use Valeri and Blanco and get the most out of them. I really think they're a dangerous team, and they're the kind of team that could come into a cup final, defend, find a break. Valeri slips a pass to Blanco, and he either scores or he finds Ebobisse, and Portland wins 1-0. They're that kind of team. So I didn't coming in. I didn't think they'd be here yet, but once we got into that run, once he figured out what this team was this year, and once I think he got his message across, because Savarese is very different than Porter. I think once he made the team his, then I could see that they were going to be a beast and something difficult to handle. So if he stays in Portland, I think he's going to make them even better next year, and they're going to be even more of a contender in 2019. What do you think, Jarrett?
I think the Western Conference Final is going to play out like the hallway fight scene in Old Boy, the original Old Boy, which is just, if you haven't seen it, it involves a man in a shot filmed in a hallway from a side angle with a hammer fighting off about 25 or 30 different people. It's gritty, it's rough, it ain't pretty, and somebody's walking out of there with a knife sticking out of their back. But they'll be the ones who walk out, which makes you wonder what happened to the other guys. That, I think, might be the Portland-Kansas City final of, wow, whoever makes it to MLS Cup might have limbs missing or, weapons sticking out of their body. But at least they made it through as opposed to the other team. And the thing is, like, if it's Portland, I can't really, it's going to be hard to bet against them, even when they go on the road. Because whoever wins has to go on the road, so it's hard to bet against them the way they play, and that they can do honestly when they came here in the middle of the season, and they were able to pull that goal, gave up the Julian Gressel goal against Atlanta, and then otherwise they were just happy to play their game, and they could play a game where it's 1-0, 1-1. God, I think that would be what would be it? 5 straight years of Cascadia teams making the final.
Yeah, it'd be Portland in 15, Seattle in 16 and 17. It'd be the 4th straight if they can pull it off. Think back to that game here. Let's look at what Savarese has done this year. They started in a 4-2-3-1, which is really what they were coming out of with Caleb Porter, although his would look 4-3-3 a little more at times, but 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 are pretty much the same thing. They started there. It wasn't really working. You put Liam Ridgewell on the do not disturb list and didn't take him on trips, then bring him back into the team. Then you go 4-3-2-1. You go Christmas tree, and you go very defensive, and you counterattack, and you start to find results. You play that, and you're on a good run when you come to Atlanta. In Atlanta, you go 5-3-2, deep 5-3-2. Unexpected, and it worked. And now you've went back to the 4-2-3-1, but it's still defensive, and it has the hallmarks of that 4-3-2-1. And you're getting more out of an Andy Polo and a Valeri and a Blanco in that 3. And it's dangerous. It's a very dangerous group. And I would have never guessed that they would have been able to move Fernando Adi on. Samuel Armenteros comes in, and he's lighting the league on fire. Then he gets injured. And you turn to Jeremy Ebobisse. And he maybe makes that group better than Armenteros or Adi did. It's really impressive.
And that's the guy that, remember, before we knew that Joseph Martinez would be what he was, I vividly remember us talking about the draft.
But that was before Joseph Martinez was even here.
Well, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Draft.
Yeah, it was before the Joseph Martinez being a thing and even existing in Atlanta. You had people who would have been fine with Atlanta taking Ebobisse, and maybe Ebobisse needed a year to develop and really a year and a half now, almost 2 years to become what he is. But he looks like the guy who would have justified being that top draft pick.
But here's the team to me that has to be kicking themselves. Who had the first pick in that draft?
that would be Minnesota taking Abu Danladi, who was viewed as, if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was viewed as he was viewed with a higher upside, but the floor was lower. The range here was much more intense.
I don't know if I'd go higher upside with Dunlody. I think he was higher coming in, but he was also injury prone, and there was concern about that. He was a little more inconsistent, but he was probably at a higher level than Ebobisse coming in. Ebobisse, I think, and I'll have to go back and read some of the reports coming in that draft, I thought he was seen as more of the project, but could have the higher upside out of people in that draft, because he was one that was definitely intriguing at 2 for Atlanta. And I think he was intriguing at 1 for Minnesota. And I think right now, if you could redraft, they would take Ebobisse over Dunlody. I think Ebobisse would be their guy. But yeah, I think he was a guy who was expected to take a little more time, but you didn't really know what he would be just yet. Dunlody was a little closer to a finished product, but injury-prone and inconsistent, and that has shown in Minnesota.
Volatile would be a word I could use for
There
him.
you go. Yeah, that's a good point.
And not to say that he's got a volatile temperament or his character is, but his play is basically a bottle of nitroglycerin on a train track.
Yes, his form is very volatile because you don't know what you're going to get out of him. Sherbs with one before we go to break. Toronto FC last year had depth, in quotes, but no real promising youngsters. Regardless of results, a big benefit from playing in CONCACAF Champions League will be more potential chances and minutes for our homegrowns. But part of, #PlayTheKids, is patience with respect to results. That's a brilliant take by Sherbs because Toronto uses their second team in a different way, and that's why you saw them drop their second team to USL League One. It's much more of an extension of their academy, and it feels like the guys in that team are further away from MLS contribution than ATL UTD2 is. I feel like Atlanta is in a position going into 2019 with CONCACAF, and let's say they make a deep run like Toronto did, and you're getting into that time where you have to, because you're not going to be able to reschedule every game early in the season to have some weekends off. You're going to have to play some league games. Toronto felt like when they pulled deep into the roster or signed to guys or whatever from TFC2, it felt like they weren't ready. If Atlanta turns to a lineup in early MLS games of, let's say, Bello, Miles Robinson, you're going to have to figure out center back and how you rotate that.
Ollie Shannon.
Yeah, Ollie Shannon, John Gallagher, Lagos Kunga, Chris Goslin. You
might not win, but you're going to compete.
Well, see, I think you're going to have a better chance to win than the Toronto teams did. I really do, because
That's fine.
I think you have a good mix of guys. And if you sign an AJ Cochran to an MLS deal to be that extra center back in these types of moments, okay, you can do that, and then you can loan him back to Atlanta United too, and he can play most of the year there if you have to. But early in the season, where you're going to need some depth at certain spots, you might have to get creative with your roster. We'll see if any other homegrowns get signed before that. But, yeah, I think you're going to be in a better position than Toronto was at that point. But Sherbs is correct. The patience early on, you are going to be taking bigger chances early in the year with your lineups because you're going to have to. Because if you're in CONCACAF, you're there to win it. You're not there like Colorado was this year just to hang out and play a couple games and go home. That's not the mentality of this club. If they're in there, they're going to try to win that thing. So, you're going to sacrifice some early season MLS results. Don't freak out. look for that development, because if you do it right and you get some results, maybe some draws instead of wins, but you get some development out of Goslin, Shannon, Gallagher, maybe Gordon Wild, maybe Patrick Okonkwo, who knows? You get some minutes and some development out of those guys. It will pay off in the long run. And then if you have those injuries, you're in a better spot to deal with it. You're in a much better spot to deal with it, because that wrecked Toronto's season this year. The biggest part is it's not just injuries for Toronto. It's that they had injuries at the same spot. I mean, 4 center backs getting hurt at the same time, that's just unheard of. I don't know if anybody can deal with that effectively. And the way it lingered on, I mean, Drew Moore was never the same all year. Mavinga, I think, played 13 games. Hagland and Zavaleta played about 20 games. I mean, when you're rotating your center backs like that and you're pulling Michael Bradley back, you're going to struggle. It's just there's really nothing you can do at that point unless you are going to go out and sign a bunch of new center backs and basically be Montreal, where it's felt like you were signing a new center back every week because the last one would get hurt the week before. It's not a good situation either, and we saw what it did to the Impact. We're going to take a break. We get into more of your false starts on a Friday after this. Stay with us.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Final segment, hour number 1. Jason Longshore, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. John Nelson will rejoin in hour number 2. It's a false start Friday. That was Jarrett's idea. And we are taking it to mean, what was your soccer opinion in 2018 that you jumped the gun on, that you were incorrect on? We've talked about some of ours. We want to hear from you about yours on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. Before we go to the break at the bottom of the hour, there was a quote that made the rounds yesterday from Don Garber, Commissioner of Major League Soccer. And Jay Riddle asks about it on Twitter this morning. He says, thoughts on Garber's comments regarding Tata going to Mexico and his apparent claim that Tata coming to MLS put him on Mexico's radar. Any clue what he was trying to say? Oh, man, I think this got overblown. I think this got overblown in the worst way. Go watch the full 2 minutes where Garber spoke to reporters about it. One, I mean, he did kind of just say that Tata's going to Mexico. I don't know if I don't know why Garber would know that. I mean, I don't think Garber has the same representation. So he could have just been responding to the questions being asked. But The comment that I saw lots of people take a line and throw it up on Twitter and run with it and call Don Garber stupid. I don't think he was saying that, oh, Mexico would not have known who Tata Martino was until he came to MLS. Like, come on. Really? Are we going to believe that that's what was being said here? Because he spent the first 60 to 90 seconds of the clip talking about Tata Martino's track record and resume and how big it was for the league for him to come here and choose to be in MLS. I don't think that's what he was saying. I think it was a little clumsy, but I think what he was saying is Mexico would not have believed that Tata Martino would have been available to them before he came to MLS, which is, I think, a reasonable thought. Look at who has managed Mexico. Not people from outside Mexico, generally. Like, it hasn't happened. Sven-Goran Eriksson. Excuse me. Sven-Goran Eriksson is the one. Outside of that, it's traditionally managers from the Mexican League. So, to have a manager of Tata Martino's stature come to Major League Soccer right next door, show that he's willing to take on a different kind of chance, I could see how Mexico would be like, maybe we should talk to him and see if he'd be interested in us. He was interested in Atlanta, and nobody thought that would happen. That's the way I took it, because it didn't make any sense when you take the full context of it. You know, and Jarrett, we talked about this because I didn't see the quote until you shared one of the isolated quotes with me asking about it, and then we found the full clip. Don Garber's not dumb, guys. You know, like, Don Garber, it didn't come from a soccer background, but that doesn't make him dumb. He understands that Mexico is not a clueless federation, and they would not have known who Tata Martino was before he came to MLS. I think it opened Mexico's eyes to the possibility that Tata Martino would consider the Mexican job because he came to MLS. That was the way I took it. Jarrett, what about you?
I didn't really know how to take it at first because, and we talked about this, Don Garber's kind of ham-handed with comments sometimes. He is not Shakespeare at times. There are moments where Don Garber talks and I'm kind of like, stop, please, just stop. Because you kind of fumble your way through a quote. And the problem with doing that is that if you get it wrong, man, people are going to jump all over you like white on rice. And he kind of brings that on himself sometimes with just the way he does things. So,
yeah, this one was weird because I felt like they took the line out of context, because if you see the full 2 minutes that I saw, and Soccer by Ivis Galarsip, SBI Soccer, is where I saw the full 2-minute clip with a couple of questions and Don talking about Tata Martino as a whole. I could see what he was saying. If you just took that line out of it and put it in print, yeah, it looks bad, but it's also taking something completely out of context.
Yeah, best part here that the lead that people keep burying is, yeah, he basically confirmed Tata to Mexico. Like, that's what everyone's kind of like.
But it's the thing is, like,
I know
he wouldn't know that.
I know, but he just kind of like, yeah, Tata in Mexico. Yeah, man, I don't know if that happened without. Like, how do you know this? Do you know this? Or are you just talking and just saying theoretically? Because
I think he was just answering the question, and yeah, the way he phrased it, it sounded like, oh well, he knows. But when you think about it, like, how would he know? I mean, unless Tata went to Atlanta and said, yes, I'm taking the Mexico job, and then the Atlanta front office talked to the league and said, yeah, he's taking the Mexico job, and they've planned for it. If that's the case, then okay. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. But I thought he was just answering the questions as they were being asked. I didn't think anything more than that. So, but yeah, I don't think he was saying that MLS introduced Mexico to Tata Martino. Come on now. I didn't take it that way at all. Maybe I'm a little optimistic at times, and maybe I'm looking for the positives in something at times, but that's not the way I took it at all. Let's get into a couple more of the false starts before we finish up. Nathan Pugh, Orlando on that unbeaten run in April and May had me thinking they would push hard for playoffs. I was right there with you at the beginning of the season. I liked the moves they made in the offseason. I was impressed when they were on that run. I thought they would be a contender. I thought they'd make the playoffs, absolutely. I thought they would be a sleeper team in the Eastern Conference. But, yeah, that didn't happen. The mental toughness of this group was incredibly questionable, and that surprised me a bit. Along with the comments from Justin Merrim when he left about the team not being organized, and others have said this too, that does not feel like a Jason Christ team to me, so I'm baffled as to what happened in preseason. There were a few little rumblings during their preseason about leadership and who was taking control of the team and who would be the captain and those types of things. I would have never guessed it would have ended the way it did. ATL UTD fan number 1. What's up, Joe? Carlos Carmona leaving Atlanta United would leave us vulnerable in the middle was definitely a false start. That was a lot of people thought that. Full credit to the Lorenowitz-Nagbe pairing early in the season. Then the Eric Remedi signing. It's a highly underrated signing for this year and the impact that Remedi had on this team. I don't know if he would have had the same impact if Nagbe hadn't been injured and Remedi hadn't had the opportunity to jump straight in. But that guy has been a perfect fit. And I kind of saw him as the long-term replacement for Lorenowitz. He's been even more than I would have thought. I didn't expect to see him contribute going forward as much as he has. Thomas Chewin says, I was definitely more bullish on Orlando City than reality demonstrated. I will never make that mistake again. They are a broken organization. Yeah. It was bad. It was shockingly bad. Jimmy Vance over at 92.9 The Game. Justin Merrim signing for Orlando would get them to the 6th spot in the playoffs. I thought they'd be higher than the 6. I thought they had the talent to be higher than the 6. They should have, on paper. They definitely should have been higher than the 6. And final false start for hour number 1 from Shiva. If I'm being honest, I never thought Atlanta would reach 69 points. I knew we would make the playoffs and go far, but with all our injuries, getting 69 points was not on my list. It was a special year, and the depth of this team to be able to do what they did was very, very impressive, and something that I don't think has gotten enough credit. With all the injuries they had and playing as many left backs as they did this season, to get the second best regular season in league history is an incredible accomplishment. And that's why Tata Martino won Coach of the Year. It should have been anyway. I don't know if some people just picked him because he's a big name and they've had a good year. But that's a big part of why he should win it. The tactical flexibility, juggling lineups, juggling injuries. Very, very impressive from Atlanta United this season. We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the other side. More on a false start Friday after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, November 16th edition. It's a false start Friday. We lost Jared at the end of the last segment due to a different kind of false start.
Yeah.
There was cream cheese involved, and there was a phone dropped into said cream cheese.
Yeah. Making breakfast for your kid, and you have cream cheese out, and you drop it in the phone, and then the phone's covered in cream cheese, and the touchscreen won't work, so... One of those days where we kind of wish we had the old Nokia toned phones back, the ones that could survive a nuclear apocalypse.
Oh,
those never got bothered by cream cheese.
Yeah, they were probably resistant to cream cheese. That's for sure. Those things were good grief.
Mm-hmm. Never had to
Didn't
get a new phone every year.
Didn't Nokia make a comeback? Aren't they trying to actually be a thing again?
They brought back that phone.
Wow.
And I think some people bought it because some people still use phones and, just not smartphones.
Sure. Why? I don't know.
It happens. Sure. Well, some people like to keep it simple.
I suppose.
Very
couple
simple.
more. Yeah, very,
Mennonite
very
simple.
simple. Yeah. A couple more false starts that have popped up on a Friday. Joe Bost was all in on the Orlando one, too. Thought and hoped Orlando would be a great rivalry and competitor. I disagree with the takes that people have that Orlando's not a rivalry because they haven't won or they haven't been good. Look,
Red Sox, Yankees.
What's that?
Red Sox and Yankees. A lot of folks sit there and just because of the disparaging number of wins until recently, it was still a rivalry.
Yeah. I mean, any rivalry is a rivalry. It's not always about the wins and the losses. Now, that can create rivalries. I think Atlanta and NYC is a bit of a rivalry because of the action on the field. But Atlanta-Orlando was a rivalry from day one. If you think it was just manufactured by the league or the front offices, go ask Terminus Legion their thoughts on that. Go ask the Orlando fans their thoughts on that. There was some edge to it before. That was a fact. So it's just jumped from there. You've had big moments in these games. So I think it's a rivalry. I would love it if it was a more competitive rivalry because that makes it better. But yeah, it's a rivalry, and I will continue to argue that one. The Colonel with a false start Friday thought. His false start Friday was believing that Brad Friedel would never have taken the job without Kraft's commitment to spend. He reserved a playoff spot for the Revolution until the very end. Friedel's quality, I'll do it again. I think Friedel's quality. I do. Some of the things he said at the end of the season got my neck twitching a little bit as to, okay, where are you going here, Brad? I think he's a very smart guy. I think the early season success maybe papered over that this team really wasn't that good. Defensively, they're not that good. Claude Dielna as your captain to start the season was a bad decision. Claude Dielna and Michael Ciani would go down on my list as two of the worst major signings in MLS history. Just awful. And they were touted because of careers in Ligue 1 or leagues like that with a nice European pedigree, but they just could not play in this league at all. not up to the same speed, just didn't seem to really want it in the same way. So that was an issue. I think Friedel got halfway in and realized that he had some problems with the group that he couldn't correct. I also think he was a little hard-headed about Lee Wynn early on. Should have done a deal sooner, or in a better way, should have actually kept him. I think Friedel looked like a young manager who was learning on the job, and that's to be expected. They have to upgrade some positions this year. And the thing that I guess has my neck twitching the most right now about the Revolution is the talk late in the season about there are going to be lots of changes. And then 19 guys are coming back. A lot of options were picked up. I don't know. I'm just looking at it sideways, wondering what's going on. They've got to upgrade. I don't think he has enough talent to compete no matter what kind of a job Friedel does, and we'll see if he gets some of that talent. We'll also see if he can get the most of it out as well. I don't know if we really know that yet, because I don't think he had the talent to do much better than he did this year. I think some of the comments would make you think maybe he lost the group a little bit. Maybe he just didn't really connect with his players that well. I mean, the whole thing about wanting the players to, not be supportive of new teammates and fight and scrap and claw, like that felt dated to me. We'll see. But I think he probably did what he probably should have done with the talent he had this season. And we'll see if he can take lesser talent further next year, or if he gets more talent to work with and can take them further. That's going to be a big storyline in 2019, I think, in the Eastern Conference, is who are the New England Revolution, and are they for real?
Yeah, for me, the late in the season comments about the anti-teammate stuff, that was what made me raise my collective eyebrows and go, okay, so that's how you want to create team unity, is by having those kinds of statements. And yeah, I mean, I think going into the year, there might have been a more of an expectation level that they would be better than they were, but they just turned out to be okay. And so okay turned out to be where they ended up. And I to your point, I want to see if there's going to be investment from Robert Kraft and what that investment's going to be, or if it's going to have to be smoke and mirrors and try to figure out with, hey, we like this guy, and trying to do a sell job. So I think to your point, yeah, I think that New England is going to be one of the big stories. I think Chicago is going to be a storyline with the front office there and the investment or player ingress and egress that we're going to have with Chicago. I want to see what they're going to do to rebound from a disastrous 2018. I want to see what they have going on. So I guess if you're looking at storylines A and B, for me, it would be New England and the Chicago Fire in the East.
Yeah, it's early, but those are two going into the off season to look at and see what they're going to do to try to change their fortunes. We've got an update from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground. Our friend Joe Patrick is there covering media availability for Dirty South Soccer, and Joe just tweeted out, in as many words, Tata Martino just told us Darlington Nagbe will likely be good to go next week versus the Red Bulls, just didn't want to risk him traveling. That's kind of what I expected, and I think that's kind of what the release said, to be honest. A low-grade hamstring strain is typical after a game. I think it was really, okay, there is a very slight tweak. Yeah, let's not have you travel. Let's not risk it because we have something big coming up. I think that's what it came down to. So make sure you're following Joe, J.A. Patrick 200, for his latest updates from training. I know Tata Martino speaking. I believe a couple other players were speaking as well. So be on the lookout for Joe's tweets for updates, and we'll bring them to you. Joe Boss, though, Jarrett, he has a very good comment. The cream cheese vat for the phone was far better than dropping it in Brunswick stew.
Yeah, because, it's not going to sink into cream cheese. It'll sink into Brunswick stew. Now, whether that's Canadian or American Brunswick stew, I'll leave that up to John to find out.
Oh. See, but the folks in Virginia are going to have some words with you about that one because you left them out of it.
The people in Virginia argue all the time, and nobody's putting the Canadian Brunswick stew into this. It's just a silly sidebar. Virginia's wrong. Georgia's correct, as is the usual case. And there you go. There's your Brunswick stew. Couple other bits of news to discuss before we go to break. Chris Tierney, New England Revolution, retired yesterday. He injured his knee against Atlanta back in May. He was out of contract going into the offseason. Great career for the Revolution, and Tierney's one of those guys who was a very high-quality player in Major League Soccer, and the type of player that, to me, doesn't get recognized enough. I think we always look at the guys who play for the national team, and they're the main guys to talk about. Guys like Chris Tierney are the backbone of this league. And Tierney had an outstanding left foot. He was a great attacking left back, big part of the Revs team that went to MLS Cup in 2014. Believe he grew up in the area, grew up as a Revs fan, got to play for them for a long time. Those are the stories we need more of in this league. But Chris Tierney is retired and will not be back with New England in 2019. A player who will be back, and this time in Orlando, is Amro Tarek, center back from Egypt. The King Foot website reports that Tarek will be staying in Orlando for 2019. I believe he was on a loan in 2018, and it looks like he'll be staying either on a permanent deal or the loan will be extended. I thought Tarek was solid this season. I thought he was better than he was better than most of the center backs they had, to be honest. I thought Tarek was a pretty solid option, and I didn't expect that much out of him.
And good on them for actually keeping a guy that they intended to keep and exercising the option intentionally.
Ooh.
Okay. Look, when you're Orlando and you've had a bad year, things are going to go wrong, and it's going to just be... Orlando is Sideshow Bob in a field full of rakes.
Okay, if you want to stay salty, I've got one for you. I want to get a salty take out of you on this one. Joel Soria, who covers the San Jose Earthquakes for Quakes Epicenter, reported last night on Twitter that Claudio Ranieri, who is now the new manager at Fulham, was offered to the Colorado Rapids and the New England Revolution. Both teams declined. Yikes. Well, both teams have managers now.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that Ranieri would come in and be successful in MLS. There's no guarantee of it.
No.
But people are saying, like, oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's crazy. I don't think it's so crazy. Based off things
we're in a new age.
No. People are saying it's crazy in that, oh, no, Ranieri would have never even thought about MLS, or he wouldn't have been offered to MLS teams. From things I've heard, I don't think that part's crazy at all. I could absolutely see that. I mean, he went to Fulham. Let's be real. If he had an opportunity, but if you had an opportunity to go to
a lifeline,
yes. If you had an opportunity to go to an MLS team or Fulham, how much of a difference is there? To be perfectly honest, no offense to Fulham fans, but let's be real.
He's absolutely going to end his run at Fulham by going to Seattle Sounders to take over next. He's following the Clint Dempsey path that has been carved out ahead of him.
Oh, there you go.
That would make a lot of sense. Both teams have managers, so it's not like they had an opening. They would have had to move on from Friedel or Hudson. Hudson?
Yeah.
Yes, I could have seen that move happening, and it would have been an upgrade. Friedel, it's a tougher spot because I don't think the poor season was all his fault. And I think you probably want to build with him a little bit. So if New England passed on bringing Ranieri in, I can understand it. Unless Colorado has a plan, I don't understand it as much. But that's out there. Joel Soria from Quakes Epicenter reports that Ranieri was offered to the Rapids and the Revs, and both teams declined. I could see him being offered to those teams. I really could. That's the new world of MLS, folks. when you start to see these types of rumors now about players and or managers being offered or considering coming to MLS, look at your calendar. Don't flash back to 2008. Make sure you realize it's 2018. Make sure you realize that MLS is not back 10 years ago. It is possible for big names to come here. We've seen this. Tata Martino. So, don't throw these things out when you see rumors like this, because I think you're going to see it more and more and more. And the league is going to continue to attract attention from managers and players that you would have been very surprised about 10 years ago. But now, Ranieri was out of a job and he took the Fulham job. If he'd ended up in MLS, I would not have been shocked at all.
Sherbs to Jarrett says that dropping the phone in Canadian Brunswick stew would have been way better for the phone since it doesn't exist.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just means it hits the table and breaks.
Yep. It's imaginary.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take a break. More of your False Start Friday takes after this. Any other takes you have, throw them our way at Soccer Down Here. We've got some news on the Copa Libertadores. Don Garber threw some very cold water on the possibility of MLS teams participating. We've also got some updates on lower divisions, on the expansion, and a big one in the NWSL, as the NWSL now has an officially recognized players association. We'll get into some of that in the rest of hour number 2. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 16th edition of the show. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. We're taking your False Start Friday takes, your takes that you jumped the gun on that you'd like to have back. People are angrily going at John still about Brunswick stew. Jimmy Vance asks if John is even allowed to go to Brunswick, Georgia to cover high school football games anymore without causing a riot.
He
haven't
is.
been back. Well, you haven't been back. Since that take, you haven't been to Brunswick. I'm just saying.
Well, I would need a van to go do that.
Fair enough. You might need protection, too. That's a pretty aggressive take for the folks of Brunswick, the good folks of Brunswick who listen to us on ESPN Coastal and overnights.
Correct. It was not a denial.
No, it was. No, it was. No, it absolutely was. You've apologized, but you can't rewrite history now. It was a denial that Brunswick came up with Brunswick stew. It was a claim that the Canadians did. And
that was a claim that there was a Canadian variant. Now you're putting words in my mouth. I was wondering if there was a Canadian variant of same.
No, we were talking about where it started, and you were throwing Canadian Maritimes into it. And our friends at Barn Burner know better. They would not make a claim about Brunswick stew. They would enjoy Brunswick stew, I hope, but they would not claim to have created it.
Oh, Pasek would jump on that in a heartbeat.
No, Pasek's not going to take credit for Brunswick stew when he knows that would be the good people of Brunswick, Georgia. Sorry, Virginia, you're wrong.
Oh, he would defend New Brunswick like nobody's business. Come on now.
Defend New Brunswick, but he would not claim that New Brunswick came up with things that they did not come up with.
Or have things that may or may not exist.
Well, their Brunswick stew would just be Brunswick stew that was made somewhere else. That's what it would be.
All right.
So there you go. That's true. That's absolutely true. They don't have a Canadian version of Brunswick stew, John. You need to give that up.
Why did I say what I said in the first segment if I wasn't giving up on the notion? Hello?
Well, you just sounded like you were pushing back on it.
No, I'm saying that Pasek would be pushing back on it.
Oh, okay. Well, he wouldn't. I have far more faith in our friend Joe Pasek from Barn Burner in Canada, who kills it north of the border. And if you're following us, or you don't know Barn Burner, check
you don't know
them
Brunswick
out for
stew.
all kinds
You don't know
of
New Brunswick stew.
John?
I saw where you're going.
No, that's not where I was going. You're just rattling off about Canadian Brunswick stew, and it makes my head hurt, and it makes things hard to function. Let's try to get this show back on the tracks. Joe Robbins had a false start Friday take about Wayne Rooney's effect, which I think a lot of people had. Knew he would sell tickets, knew he would get some excitement in the local media, did not expect the performance on the field from him. And, yeah, that was, I think, one of the things that was the most surprising about Mr. Rooney. And Lucho Roo was the biggest surprise, because I've been a Luciano Acosta fan since he came into the league. He's been a lot of fun to watch. I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league. And it was a lot of fun to watch him and Rooney create a chemistry immediately. And probably one of the best duos in the league in the attacking phase of play.
And the fact that I started Acosta at points, Rooney at points, and Areola at points in my fantasy league, which my team did not win the Soccer Down Here Fantasy League, by the way.
No, they did not. Mine didn't either. Jarrett's didn't either. Didn't happen.
Joe Bost has a question. He wonders if Canadian Brunswick stew would be made with moose meat. That I don't know.
I don't know about the eating of the moose.
I don't either.
That would be something that our Canadian friends would have to help us with, because I am not sure. Tata Martino, just a little bit ago, and our friend Doug Robertson of the AJC has this. He was asked about where he was going and asked about what Don Garber said. And Tata Martino said, I have nothing new to say about that. I did see what Don Garber said yesterday. I'm still contractually linked to Atlanta United. So, Tata Martino is not going to say where he is going. Again, I think Garber was responding to the question that was asked of him. I don't think Don Garber is out there trying to break news on, yep, I know stuff you don't. I know where he's going. I don't know if it's a guarantee where he's going. I mean, remember what Felipe told us yesterday. You've got Eric Gomez from ESPN calling Univision Deportes liars. Flat out calling them liars. Yeah, this is going to get weird. It's going to continue to get weird. Mexico actually plays Argentina today, too, so it will continue to get even weirder with more stuff. So just stay tuned. Couple other things on the news and notes for the day. St. Louis, a city economic development board, approved the 2 tax breaks that the expansion group was looking to get. That was approved on Thursday. for the proposed stadium in downtown St. Louis. It's a tax credit of up to $30 million over 2 years. The State Development Board has to approve that as well, and they meet next month. So stay tuned on developments out of St. Louis, but things look to be moving along rather nicely. The Soccer X convention is in Miami right now, and it's at Marlins Park. There was some talk about Inter Miami and what they will do in 2020. Marlins Park is one of the proposed temporary venues for Inter Miami's first season. Hard Rock Stadium is the other one. Folks in Miami, I don't know which would be better. I know Hard Rock's further out from the city. It's a better soccer venue, that's for sure, because I don't know if soccer's been played at Marlins Park. It's a baseball stadium, and we know how those go. But Hard Rock is out there a little bit. I think location-wise, Marlins Park is better, but for a soccer venue, Hard Rock Stadium is better, and that's not an easy decision to make.
But then do you play at Marlins Park to get everybody prepared for what would be going down where the proposed stadium is with Melreese?
That's what I'm saying. I think you do. I think you have to bite the bullet and do that, because if you play at Hard Rock, you're going to have less people there, and you're nowhere near where your stadium's going to be. So while it will look nice on the field, it will not be good for building a fan base. Unless, I mean, hey, if you want to go sign Lionel Messi and get people to come out to Hard Rock Stadium to watch him play in an Inter Miami pink kit, then okay. Then I think it doesn't matter if you're playing at Hard Rock or not. But if not, then yeah, you probably need to be at Marlins Park, even though it will not be ideal by any stretch. I know they've played football there. I don't know how soccer would work in that venue.
Probably down the left field foul line?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know the dimensions or how it would look. Lower division stuff. Couple bits of news from teams in our region. Chattanooga Red Wolves unveiled their logo along with the stadium designs for their new venue that they're working on. Great piece over at Protagonist Soccer. Eric Long had an interview with lots of the people who were there last night. But Bob Martino had a couple quotes that stood out to me, talking about why he chose Chattanooga for a professional team. He said, I looked all over the country at different types of locations, coast to coast. Seeing Chattanooga and the Southeast region, whether it's soccer or football or baseball, it's amazing. There's great athletic support in this area. Great athletes come out of it. They can compete with anyone in the country. The teams in the Southeast can compete with teams from California. Being from the West, that always caught our attention. It's just a great environment, and soccer is great in this area. I like the Red Wolves logo. It works for me. I'm good with it. The new stadium looks great. The designs look great. So I'll be very intrigued to see the Red Wolves in their development, USL League One. USL Championship, Birmingham Legion down the road, they announced a multi-year partnership with Sinclair Broadcast Group that will have Legion FC matches airing on My 68 WABM, which is now the television home of Birmingham Legion FC. There will also be exclusive coverage opportunities and promotional elements across the 3 Sinclair stations in the market: My 68, WTTO, CW21, and ABC 33/40. Great move for Birmingham. I think all home and away matches will be broadcast on over-the-air TV. Great move for the Legion.
Yeah, and the idea that they are, you're in a triopoly, which is what Sinclair likes to do with a lot of their markets. But the fact that you can put matches on my network and the CW, and then you have an outlet that is tied to you for regular coverage within their news product over at 3340, that's a great vertical integration for coming out of the blocks for Birmingham. And that reminds me, I guess we need to catch up with friend of the show, Morgan Copes or Jay Heaps or somebody over in Birmingham recently in the near future, as well as catching up with Sean McDaniel up in Chattanooga, yeah?
Yeah, we got lots of stuff to catch up on because it is a very big off-season for the lower divisions in our region, with USL League One getting off the ground, with USL Championship teams launching. Lots of stuff. We're going to talk women's soccer after this, NWSL and the U.S. Women's U17s. We'll get you caught up on all of that in our next segment. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot, Miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 16th edition. False start Friday. If you have any more false starts, jump the gun a little bit on a soccer take in 2018. If you have any of those you'd like to call back, go ahead and tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. There's been some really good ones this season. A lot of them have to do with Orlando. I think everybody expected more from Orlando this season, and it just didn't happen.
And one of mine was injury related. I would like to claim.
Oh yeah, I don't even think that's a false start. I don't even think that's a bad take. That was
because I had Tito Villalba as my dark horse MVP candidate, but he wasn't on the field enough.
There's nothing you can say about that. That's not your fault. That's not a bad take. That's injuries getting in the way. A little bit of news yesterday, too, on the Carolina Challenge Cup. We haven't touched on that yet. Cincinnati will play in the Carolina Challenge Cup for the first time. That'll be part of their preseason. They're going to be in Bradenton first. They're going to play Montreal and Colorado and Malmo from Sweden, which will be a big preseason test for them in Bradenton. Then they will go back to Cincinnati. They'll play in Indiana against Indy 11 before heading to Charleston for the Carolina Challenge Cup. The Battery will be part of it. The Chicago Fire will be part of it. FC Cincinnati will be part of it. And one more team that is, I think, locked down but hasn't been announced yet. Is that the best way to put it?
Yeah, I think so.
They
because
said the deal is done, but they haven't announced the team yet. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
The team is confirmed, but will be announced at a later date.
Look, there's unconfirmed stuff out there about Columbus being that team, and that would kind of make sense why you couldn't announce it yet, because there are some things to figure out about Columbus and all this. And, yeah, we saw some stories make the rounds yesterday about breaking news that Austin would not be playing next year. I thought locked down when the Haslam-Columbus stuff got started, because that was a big part of the messaging from MLS, that they expected a team to start. They said no later than 2021, but by this point, the way that deal would go down and the way that deal was presented, you were not going to have an expansion Austin team with Columbus staying in Columbus, keeping their players. It wasn't going to happen. I think we were all kind of on the same page there. So, yeah, I mean, it's tricky. So if it's Columbus playing in Charleston, I could see you still have some things to sort out, so you can't announce them just yet. Stay tuned. It'll happen. If that's it. It could be somebody else. We don't know. Could be somebody who's playing in international play and you're waiting to see schedules. That's also something why you could have a team that is locked down but unable to announce yet, because you might have to make a change. So stay tuned on the Carolina Challenge Cup, but it will be Cincinnati, Chicago, Charleston, and one more team. The usual format, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday type of scheduling. Let's get into the women's side of things. The US U17s got off to a good start in their World Cup opener, 3-0 win over Cameroon. Mia Fischel with a goal, Sunshine Fontes with 2 goals. But the big story on the women's side yesterday was that the Players Association, which had been formed in the last year, is now officially recognized by the NWSL. They announced it Wednesday, several months of discussion. I think the big part of it that a lot of people are grabbing onto is that the league voluntarily recognized the NWSLPA. It wasn't something that was mandated or went to the courts for that to happen. This was voluntary from the NWSL. Hopefully that means that they're going to work together. And Yael Averbach, who is the president of the NWSLPA from the Seattle Reign, stressed that collaborative nature that the Players Association wants to take. Now, in women's pro sports right now, I think a lot of people will be looking at the WNBA and their Players Association. Are they starting talks on a new CBA? Is that where they're at?
Yeah, they're dancing around that right now.
Did they?
And
I can't remember the official situation on their CBA, but I think
the union opted out of it.
Yes, there you go. That was it. I couldn't remember if it was just being continued or what, but they've opted out, so they're going to renegotiate.
Yes.
The NWSLPA will be creating a CBA from scratch, and that is very, very difficult, and it's very different in the NWSL situation because of the women's national team CBA, which would affect some NWSL players, but not all. You've got to balance quite a few different things here in an NWSL CBA. But as we're seeing with Sky Blue, other things that have come up in the league, it is much needed. And it's something that has to get sorted out. I think the players understand that no, and I think MLS is probably in the same boat. Now is not the time to threaten a strike. Now is not the time to go there because I don't think you have that leverage. Now is the time to try to work together to push the league forward, and the players are a big part of that. And as long as the league recognizes it and treats the players accordingly, I think this can work and can get done in a good way to benefit everybody. But just the fact that now you have an officially recognized NWSL Players Association, I think that's a big move for the league, John.
Yeah, and to the point that the WNBAPA is making, it's about, it's things that mean a lot that when you think about it, they make common sense. I think that, for me, when it comes to the NWSL, it's the whole situation with Sky Blue. And then how you're treating your players. You're making sure that travel is, and I'm going to put the word in quotes, appropriate. I mean, you're not doing quick turns. You're not putting an athlete in a cramped seat. You're making sure that the athletes are taken care of on the pitch, off the pitch in training and recovery and regeneration, and in travel. I mean, you don't want, quick turn, 2 a.m., red eyes, 3 changes, those kinds of things. And it's those common sense elements that you hope that they can understand, that the players really need to put the best product out there, to have the best training staffs, to where you can have recovery so these athletes can continue to perform at a maximum level and give maximum effort. It's those kinds of things that, for me, you sit there and you see one side and another side going at it across the table, but there are just issues in this day and age that I think need to be addressed. And I'm hoping that with the recognition of this now with the NWSLPA, that right now you're at a key point. Get things done and do it just do it commonsensically, and then the sport and the league can continue to grow in the direction it should.
Jarrett, thoughts on the next steps here on the NWSL side? We've talked about planning for the future and expansion, and I mean, you still need a commissioner, which you don't have, and you haven't had for a little while. Amanda Duffy is the, I guess, interim managing director is kind of where we're at this point. This Players Association part is a big part, I think, of creating that foundation for growth for the NWSL.
It's a good step, getting everything set up with the union. Eventually getting somebody up top in charge. At this point, I'm just happy to see the NWSL kind of stabilized. Based on earlier iterations of women's soccer we've seen in this country, it's in much better shape than it was before, and I can live with that. It's never. I don't think it was ever going to be a super fast process. So just seeing the stability is nice to see, and it's going to. And time moves differently with leagues than it does, in different parts of the universe. We view 5 years as a blink of an eye when it comes to a league or a franchise, whereas everyone else, we think 5 years, that's a long way away.
This league has really grown a lot in this period of time. And honestly, it was just getting through that 3-year cycle because no women's professional soccer league had made it past year 3 in this country. It just hadn't happened. So now I don't think you're going away. I don't see the NWSL going away anytime soon, even with the balance you've had here in the last couple of years with Western New York moving to North Carolina, becoming the Courage. That's been successful. FC Kansas City sold first, doesn't work out. They go to Utah. That's been successful. Now you've got Sky Blue after you couldn't save the Boston Breakers. Now you've got Sky Blue. It has to be a cleaner progression than it was for Boston. You want to either keep that team alive or you want to have them sold and moved as Kansas City was. You don't want to see that team just dissolve. You do need to figure out what expansion is going to look like. Reportedly, Barcelona wants in. Reportedly, Los Angeles wants in. Beyond that, what's next? Is it other MLS teams? Is it other USL teams, as we've seen with North Carolina? What does it look like going forward? Because you get the Players Association, you get the CBA done, you have the Women's National Team CBA done, you have the support of the U.S. Soccer Federation, you have the support of the Canadian Soccer Association. The foundation is coming together. Hire the commissioner, whether it's Amanda Duffy or somebody else, and start the plan for growth. Because the league does need to grow bigger. I think if it continues to grow bigger, then the salaries can grow, then the players can make more money, then everything can start to spin upward. Because that's a part of it for the Players Association, obviously. I mean, you want to have more money to pay these players. But you also have situations where teams are not making enough money to survive. It's a fact. So how much more can you pay? You've got to find that balance. And I think having the league be in a position to do that is important. You got to have a commissioner to do it. You got to get the CBA done. You've got to have that plan for expansion to where it doesn't feel like you're just grabbing at whatever opportunities come. You've got to be better positioned to grow. And for me, that's the strategic plan that the NWSL needs, and I don't know if they have it. Hopefully the talks with the Players Association, that might help create it. It really could. I hope they go into it open-minded, and I hope they listen to the players who are, a smart group of athletes who only want the game to grow. They don't want to force things in that are going to, affect the business longevity of this league. I mean, these players don't want to put themselves out of jobs. I think they want to work with the league to grow it. Listen to them. I don't think there's a strategic plan out there for the NWSL right now. I mean, there's no commissioner, so I'm assuming there's not. Listen to your players. You might learn something.
And a lot of them have been in internationals, in the international cycles for their native countries. And so that experience is there. And you just hope that both sides of the table will come at it and understand that they only want the league to grow and go forward, and that there's no animus at the table. And I think that for me, it's just like both sides hopefully want the same thing, work toward it, and use common sense as you go forward.
Well, our garlic bread warlord, Nick Alifi, says he wants Arthur Blank to start an NWSL team. I think the regional development school tryouts for ladies could be a trial balloon for building an academy. Thoughts on that? Could be. It's a good first step to building an academy from scratch on the girls' side, if that's what you want to do. I've said it for years that just knowing the Arthur Blank Foundation and their goals and mission and initiatives that they want to see grow, girls' physical activity is a big part of that. Sports for girls, athletic opportunities for girls is a big part of the foundation side. Now, this is a business, and they're going to want to break even or make money on a professional women's team. And I think to do that, you've got to grow the organization just a little bit more first. You're going to have your plan to build out at the training center because there's no room in the building. You probably need another field or two. You're going to need separate women's locker rooms, facilities for academy, for professional, for all of it. That is something it's going to take a little bit of time. Where are they going to play? Another question. Is it Kennesaw? Is it Mercedes-Benz? Is it a little of both? Okay, that's another thing to figure out. Staffing, not just from a coaching perspective, but communications. All of the stuff you build a front office with, you have to do that as well. I think the USL team became something they had to push through, and they did quickly. This, I think they want to take a little more time with it. And I think there's questions on NWSL as well. I don't think the league's going anywhere, but I think, if I'm wanting to invest in it, I want to see the CBA get done. I want to see that strategic plan for growth. I want to see what I'm buying into. So I think I could see NWSL in Atlanta. I could see it as part of Atlanta United, but it's not there yet. On a lot of different levels, it's not there yet. Don't get discouraged. I think it would make a lot of sense down the road. It just might take a couple of years. It might take 2 years. I don't see it happening. It's not happening in 2019. I don't see it happening in 2020 unless big-time progress happens in 2019. I think you're looking at 2021 or later. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'd love to see it. I would absolutely love to see the NWSL in Atlanta as part of Atlanta United. We'll see if that happens down the road. We're going to take our final break on a False Start Friday. If you have any false starts, any takes that you would like to have back, tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment on a false start Friday. This was a good one, Jarrett. Props to you. Nice hashtag. I like it. False start Friday edition of the show. Jarrett gets the gold star for the week for his contributions on the
I'll give it back next week.
Well, he'll drop it in the cream cheese, and then we're all screwed.
Yeah, well.
Or in the
don't get used to these positive things coming from me.
Hey, no, it happens every once in a while. We'll get into false starts, our final false starts of the week after this. But quote that we talked about a little bit earlier that I wanted to share. Don Garber said more than things about Tata Martino and the potential U.S. men's national team coach that he hinted at as well in his statement yesterday. He talked about Copa Libertadores, and he said, I don't see it happening. Bum, bum, bum. It's kind of sad. He said, and this is where I think he leaves a little bit of an out, but this is his quote about the whole thing, and this was from Soccer X in Miami yesterday. We've got a lot of work to do to continue to evolve our own schedule. It gets busier and busier and more crowded. And we have been really focused on trying to think of ways in which we could have some sort of meaningful competition with Liga MX. And we've got a long way to go to figure out how that schedule will work. But our league is growing. We have more teams, and in time, we'll be able to have an opportunity to play in different competitions than just our league competition and our federations competition and our confederations competition. But thinking about that being outside of our confederation, I don't see that happening anytime soon. The thing that jumped out to me is a lot of work to continue to evolve our own schedule. The crowded nature of it, yeah, I think we all understand this and know this because you've got Open Cup, you've got CONCACAF Champions League, you've got a league schedule, you've got midweek games, you've got lots of stuff to deal with. How do you evolve your own schedule and create this meaningful competition with Liga MX that had been talked about earlier this year? I think it would be more like a Super Cup of sorts, more like a Champions League type of competition with group stage as opposed to a separate league. And I think Don's comments here also say that, where you're talking about your league competition, your federation competition, which would be the U.S. Open Cup, your confederation competition, which is the CONCACAF Champions League. The competition, the meaningful competition with Liga MX would go alongside of those. And how does that look? And that's, I think, probably the next step. Then maybe you're looking at Libertadores down the road. However, if Liga MX is going to CONMEBOL and saying, we want into the Libertadores, we want in, I could see a scenario where MLS is tagging along as part of that. I really could, because if Liga MX goes there, how hungry are they going to be for that meaningful competition with MLS? Is it going to just look like the Superliga did? And if that's the case, then fine. If it's your top two teams, your best team in each conference goes to Libertadores. They're also going to go to the CONCACAF Champions League, which is a whole nother scheduling quandary you've got to figure out. Then if your Cup winner, your Open Cup winner, your MLS Cup winner, your Open Cup winner go to CONCACAF Champions League as well, is it the next four best teams that aren't in Libertadores or CONCACAF that go to a Superliga competition with the best four Mexican teams who are not in CONCACAF or Libertadores? Maybe. But that's not the way it was portrayed when they started talking about this earlier this year. That would just be the old Superliga. Kind of a replacement for what a Europa League or a Copa Sudamericana would be. money talks, and money will decide this. If the money is right for MLS to be in Copa Libertadores, it's going to happen. If CONMEBOL thinks they'll make more money by having MLS involved in it, they're going to try to make it happen. If MLS will benefit from it financially, they will do it. But Garber's right in that there's a lot of stuff to jam into a calendar right now, and that is a big concern for the league. For me, number one on that list is getting this playoff structure right to avoid the disruption during the November international window. It's awful in the middle of the playoffs for publicity, for marketing, for momentum, for the competition. There are no benefits to the way the playoffs are currently structured with this break in the middle of it. Zero. They got to figure that out. That's the number one thing for me.
And then also on the board, some folks with some more false starts.
Yeah, let's get
Daniel
into
Graham.
our false start Friday final takes for the day and the week.
Our final false starts. Daniel Graham off of the one from ATL UTD fan discussing Carlos Carmona and wondering if it would leave us vulnerable in the middle. And Daniel Graham said it kind of did, but the front office had a remedy. And then
No, it didn't.
Joe Boss.
No, I disagree. It did not leave us vulnerable in the middle. You did not have a drop-off with Lorenowitz and Nagbe. Darlington Nagbe was excellent early in the year defensively. I disagree with that amendment to the earlier false start about it leaving them vulnerable. I don't think it did. I think the false start was correct. The concern that it would leave them vulnerable. I don't think it did. I think Nagbe filled the gap very well, and then Remedi was a whole nother story.
And then Joe Boss with a false start. Honestly, my biggest thing for the soccer year would have been my level of interest and enthusiasm for Atlanta United, given my total lack of knowledge and prior interest.
That's happened with a lot of people, I think. I think a lot of people have grabbed onto this, and that's the biggest difference between the Atlanta fan base and others. It's not just a insular soccer community that doesn't know the bigger landscape of sports in this country. I think the Atlanta fan base has every potential type of fan you could ever want in soccer in the United States. International, hardcore soccer, hardcore grown up through the youth system, people who found the game through the FIFA video games, people who fell in love with soccer through a World Cup, through the Premier League, people who are brand new to the sport, period, and this is their first introduction to it. I think you have all of that in big numbers in the Atlanta fan base, and that's why it's different than everybody else.
And Christopher Gersel thinks basically the very earliest year that there's even a small possibility of Atlanta United having an NWSL team is 2020, and even that probability is not all that high. I'd be absolutely stunned if they didn't have an NWSL team in their roadmap, though.
I think it's on the list of possibilities. I wouldn't say that it is definitely on a roadmap because it has to make sense from a business perspective. And there are questions about the NWSL from a business perspective. There are. I think Merritt Paulson would argue that Atlanta is probably the best positioned to do a similar type of setup as to what he's done in Portland with the Thorns, where the Thorns are very successful on their own, but that partnership and that club atmosphere with the Timbers and the Thorns is a big part of it. I think Atlanta is the best positioned to emulate that. But you've also started an MLS team from scratch in the most ambitious way possible. You launched a USL team in League Two from scratch. You launched an academy in a massive way from scratch, a year ahead of everything, and you've added pieces to it as you've gone. That's a lot. You might want to catch your breath a little bit first. So I'm thinking 2021 and beyond, but I think there's probably questions that they would want answered from NWSL along the way before they pull the trigger. And I think that's reasonable.
Stuff coming up this weekend. Let's see, what's today? Friday? So Sunday, Madison Pro Soccer is going to have their name and logo reveal. That is at 1 o'clock, so I guess 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon our time. Madison will unveil their things. All of the things will be unveiled.
Okay. Things unveiled. I like it. I did like their logo explainer for their temporary logo, which was a word mark. That was kind of funny because the logo explainer has become a thing here lately, and it's a little overdone. It's a logo.
And so the Red Wolves was cinnamon color, the Red Wolf, pointed peaks, and powder sky stripes was their explainers.
Yeah. The Cincinnati one had all kinds of explainers to it, and I get it. You're trying to create some meaning in it. Totally understand, but sometimes simpler the better.
The coat of the American Red Wolf, and obviously the Red Wolves we knew about. Pointed peaks, obviously, with what's going on in and around the city. And the flowing river and expansive sky are the powder sky stripes. That was the explainer for that.
No, it makes sense. I like the color combination for the Red Wolves. I think that'll work. So, no, it's good. I think sometimes we're just trying to logo explain every single possible element of the logo, and it's just a little much,
or a lot much.
That too.
And let's see, it looked like the French and New Mexico United trotted everybody out to Isotopes Park to take a peek at how things are going to be. Devin Sandoval, formerly of ATO UTD2, will be out there, as will Cody Mizell, correct?
Yes, former Atlanta area goalkeeper Cody Mizell. He's been involved in quite a few different setups in USL. He will probably be the number one for New Mexico United when they start the 2019 USL Championship season. I think that does it for a week of soccer down here. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks to all of the excellent False Start Friday takes. This was a fun one. We'll have to come up with more one-off hashtag days as we get into the off-season coming up. Next week, we'll have a lot of New York Red Bulls preview action as we get closer to the kickoff of the Eastern Conference Finals series. Tons to get into there. We'll also have a 1v1 next week with Felipe Cardenas about the second leg of the Copa Libertadores final. All the other stuff that will come up next week. We're closer to a silly season, which means the silliness is starting to emerge. I would include the Monterrey Joseph Martinez talk in the silliness at this point. I don't think there's anything to it just yet. So, with that being said, we'll be back Monday morning, 9 o'clock on the Soccer Down Here app, on Spreaker, and on soccerdownhere.net. Thanks for listening, y'all. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha playoffs, y'all.